I stood at the precipice of everything I knew, my suitcase a heavy burden beside me, each tear a hot trail down my face. The man I had married, the one I believed saw me as his future, had, I was convinced, reduced me to nothing more than a mistake, an anomaly to be corrected within the polished confines of his world. But then, a murmur of voices drifted up from downstairs, my name piercing through the fog of my despair. What I heard next, those unexpected words, didn't just alter my immediate course. They shattered my perceptions of love, family, and the silent wars waged in the name of protection. Perhaps you too have known that gnawing ache of feeling invisible, of battling unseen forces, of being an outsider in a world that never truly wanted you. This narrative, then, is for you. It's a story born from the crucible of old money, veiled cruelty, and a love that chose to fight not with aggression, but with a quiet, calculated devastation. My name is merely a detail. My journey is the heart of the matter. I grew up amidst the stark realities of urban life, where the wail of sirens formed the backdrop to childhood, and grand dreams felt like luxuries reserved for another stratum of society. My mother, a woman of quiet strength and immense dignity, labored incessantly, her hands calloused from cleaning the grand homes of families who, despite their opulence, possessed a stark poverty of spirit. She worked 3 jobs, her body aching, her spirit often bruised by the casual indifference of those who wouldn't even deign to meet her gaze as she faded into the backdrop of their luxurious hallways. I watched her come home, the exhaustion etched deep into her features, and in those moments, a silent vow took root in my young heart. I would never bow down. Never would I allow anyone to diminish my worth or make me feel small, a mere shadow in a world designed for others. Life, however, has a peculiar way of testing one's deepest convictions. By 24, I found myself working at the Riverside Country Club, carrying trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres, swallowing my pride as the privileged patrons treated me as if I were part of the decor. It was there I first encountered the Wellington family, a dynasty of old money, their wealth stretching back generations, breeding an almost innate sense of entitlement. They were regulars, always occupying the same window table, and without hyperbole, they were the most insufferable customers we had. Mrs. Wellington possessed a chilling hauteur, snapping her fingers at servers as if summoning trained animals. Her daughter, Isabel, reveled in deliberately knocking over items, observing with detached amusement as we scurried to rectify the chaos she had created. They seemed to derive perverse pleasure from our struggles, a testament to a certain pathology of power. The night that irrevocably changed my trajectory began like any other, a disaster waiting to unfold. I navigated the bustling room with a tray laden with bottles of an exorbitantly priced vintage wine, a sum that easily eclipsed 3 months of my meager rent. Suddenly, Isabel's foot jutted out, a malicious tripwire. I saw it, registered the intent, but the inertia of the moment was too great. The tray tipped, glasses clinked, then shattered, a symphony of destruction as crimson wine splashed across the pristine white carpet, and, fatefully, onto the bespoke suit of a man who had just entered. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" I gasped, my hands trembling as I frantically reached for napkins, knowing full well this spelled the end of my job, the very lifeline supporting my younger sister's college education. "Isabel, that was deliberate." The man's voice cut through the clamor, starkly different from the Wellington's usual imperious tones. It carried a weary resonance, a profound disappointment. "Apologize to her right now." I looked up, truly seeing him for the first time. He was undeniably handsome, in a way that stole the breath from your lungs, but it was his eyes that truly arrested me. They held a profound weariness, a shared exhaustion that mirrored my own. "She's just the help," Isabel scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Besides, it was an accident." "Then accidentally apologize," he retorted, his gaze unwavering from mine. "Or I'll accidentally forget to sign those business documents Father left on my desk for you." That exchange marked our genesis. He was the Wellington family's proverbial black sheep, the one who carried a beating heart beneath layers of dynastic expectation. He insisted on replacing my ruined uniform, left a tip that covered 3 months of my rent, and most remarkably, asked for my name as if it held genuine significance to him. Our clandestine meetings began soon after. It wasn't out of shame for my humble background, a misconception I would later rectify, but because he saw the insidious toxicity of his family, a malevolence he desperately sought to shield me from. For 6 exquisite months, I inhabited 2 parallel universes. By day, I served the very people who looked straight through me, as if I were an optical illusion. By night, I was with a man who saw only me, whose world narrowed to our shared moments. He would appear at my tiny apartment, Chinese takeout in hand, and we'd eat straight from the containers on my second-hand sofa, discussing everything from global affairs to the mundane joys of everyday life. He patiently tutored my sister through her business homework, spending hours at our kitchen table, demystifying complex concepts until clarity dawned. When my mother's old car sputtered its last, he arrived in his expensive suit, tools in hand, and repaired it himself, heedless of the oil stains that marred his designer fabric. I fell in love with him in these quiet, unpretentious moments, 1,000 small acts of kindness that stitched themselves into the fabric of my soul, before I even fully grasped the profound shift within my heart. The night he proposed, my yes was immediate, unwavering, but our joy was short-lived. His mother, ever watchful, had trailed him that night. The very next morning, she appeared at my door, an envelope clutched in her hand, her eyes like shards of ice. Inside was a check for $5 million. "Take this money and disappear," she commanded, laying the check on my kitchen table as if dealing a card in a high-stakes game. "Or stay, and I will ensure your sister loses her scholarship, your mother loses all her jobs, and you lose everything you've ever cared about. My son is merely going through a rebellious phase. Do not mistake it for real love." I gazed at the check, an astronomical sum, more money than I had ever dared to conjure in my wildest dreams. Then, with a defiance that surprised even myself, I tore it into 100 pieces, scattering them before her frigid gaze. Perhaps it was a mistake, an act of naive bravado. Or perhaps, in that singular moment, I unknowingly declared war. We married nonetheless. A small ceremony, attended only by my family and a handful of his trusted friends. His family's absence was a stark statement, their gift an even clearer declaration, a newspaper announcement heralding the return of his ex-girlfriend from her European studies. The games, it seemed, had begun. I, however, was still blissfully unaware I was even a player. Entering his world felt like being dropped onto an alien planet, a place where the air was too thin, the language unfamiliar. The house we inhabited was less a home, and more a meticulously curated museum, every object in its designated place, every room a testament to an aesthetic devoid of warmth. I was the jarring element, the piece that simply didn't fit their perfect tableau. His mother held keys to our house, a constant intrusion. She would arrive when he was at work, gliding through our rooms like a phantom proprietor, rearranging my belongings, leaving passive-aggressive notes on proper placement and maintaining aesthetic harmony. At a family dinner, she even loudly announced that she'd hired an etiquette coach for me, adding with a saccharine smile, "Even dogs can be trained with enough patience, dear." The underlying message was clear. I was an untamed creature, needing domestication. Those family dinners were nothing short of psychological torture. I was always served last, my plate deliberately different from theirs. "Oh, we thought you'd be more comfortable with the everyday dishes, dear," Mrs. Wellington would coo, her eyes devoid of genuine warmth. They would converse in rapid-fire French at the table, a calculated exclusion, only switching back to English to ask if I required anything from the kitchen, positioning me as a domestic rather than a family member. Isabel, with an almost predatory glee, would recount lengthy, detailed anecdotes about his ex-girlfriend, highlighting their shared trips to Paris, their intertwined social circles, how seamlessly she had integrated into their world. Each story, was a miniature blade, twisting slowly in my heart. I tried, truly I did, to articulate my pain to my husband. But how does one explain the sensation of drowning to someone who has never struggled to swim? He had been raised in that emotional permafrost. Their coldness was his normal. He dismissed my distress as oversensitivity, suggesting I merely needed more time to adapt. He didn't perceive their choreographed cruelty, how they waited until his back was turned to plunge the knife deeper. They simply didn't want him to see. Our first anniversary party marked a pivotal descent into despair. It was meant to be our celebration, a testament to a year of choosing each other. Instead, his mother orchestrated a public humiliation. She invited his ex-girlfriend, introducing her to guests as the one who got away, all while I stood beside him in a dress I'd saved months to purchase. At dinner, the ex-girlfriend was seated next to him. Songs that had once been their song were played. His mother raised a glass, toasting second chances and finding your way back to where you belong. Her gaze fixed pointedly on the ex-girlfriend, pointedly avoiding mine. Later that week, I discovered our wedding photos had been removed from the family gallery wall, replaced with images from a charity event years prior, where his ex had been his date. When I inquired, Isabel offered a venomous smile. "Oh, we're just renovating. Some pictures just don't match the aesthetic anymore, you know." That same night, passing his study, I heard his laugh mingling with old friends. One of them casually quipped about how he'd at least gotten the diversity thing out of his system now. I froze in the hallway, waiting for him to defend me, for him to utter a single word of protest. He merely continued to laugh. That laugh, devoid of recognition for my pain, shattered something fundamental within me. The charity gala, however, was my ultimate breaking point, the moment I knew I could endure no more. His mother had personally promised to handle my invitation. Upon our arrival, dressed impeccably, my name was conspicuously absent from the guest list. No ticket, no seat. "Oh dear," Mrs. Wellington declared loudly, ensuring all within earshot could hear. "They must have thought you were part of the staff. Well, you could always work the event if you'd like to stay." To my horror, a server's uniform was produced. She had planned this. My husband stood silent, saying nothing. And so, I put on that uniform. I served drinks at my own husband's table while his ex-girlfriend occupied my rightful chair, adorned in the exact designer dress he'd bought for me months earlier. Except hers fit perfectly, a cruel testament to his mother's meticulous espionage, having procured my measurements for her. I overheard Isabel confide to someone that I was merely the marriage his accountant recommended for tax purposes. I returned home that night, crying until the well of my tears ran dry. The final rupture occurred a week later when I stumbled upon papers in his study. Divorce documents, partially completed, dated before our anniversary party, before that public humiliation. More devastating were the printed text messages between him and his ex-girlfriend, conversations about secret meetings, messages referring to me as a mistake he needed to fix. I was utterly, irrevocably done. A quiet kind of done, where the emotional reserves are entirely depleted, leaving only an echoing void. But I vowed I would not leave empty-handed. They would not erase me without a fight. I began to document everything. Every subtle insult, every casual cruelty, every attempt to diminish my worth. My sister helped me find a formidable lawyer, and a cousin connected me with someone specializing in complex family law. I packed slowly, meticulously, taking only what I had brought into the marriage. My grandmother's ring, my father's Bible, photographs of my real family. Anything he had given me now felt tainted, poisoned. Everything was in place. I was ready to leave, to finally, unequivocally walk away. The day I planned my escape coincided with an emergency family meeting at the house. The Wellingtons arrived earlier than anticipated, gathering in the study downstairs like a flock of vultures circling a fresh kill. I was upstairs, suitcase packed, ready to walk out forever, when I heard them. My name again. Something compelled me to stop, to listen. Finally getting rid of that trash, Mrs. Wellington's voice rang out, thick with triumph. The divorce papers worked perfectly. She's been packing for days. I watched her through the cameras. The ex-girlfriend act was absolutely brilliant, Isabel chortled. She really believed he was cheating. All those fake text messages we created looked so real, his brother added. Technology really is wonderful these days. So easy to fabricate things. My blood ran ice cold, then searing hot, then cold again. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Enough! My husband's voice, sharp and lacerating, sliced through their jubilant celebration. Are you satisfied now? You've destroyed my marriage. You've broken the only real thing I've ever had in my life. Don't be so dramatic, his mother said dismissively, her tone laced with contempt. She was never good enough for this family anyway. Good enough? His laugh was a bitter, broken sound, utterly unlike anything I had ever heard from him. She was everything. She was the only person who ever loved me without wanting something in return. And you couldn't stand it, could you? You couldn't stand that I chose someone who didn't care about the money or the name or the social connections. She was obviously a gold digger, his mother insisted, stubbornly clinging to her narrative. She tore up a $5 million check in your face, he was shouting now, his voice raw with a pain that resonated deep within me. She works 12-hour shifts even though I beg her to quit, because she refuses to be what you call her. She sends half of everything I give her to her own family. She made me sign a prenup to protect my assets because she never wanted anyone to question why she married me. And you broke her. Day by day, cut by cut, you broke the strongest woman I've ever known. A chilling silence descended. Then the rustling of papers. What is this? His mother's voice was different now, edged with fear. Evidence, he said quietly, his voice now imbued with an unsettling calm. 3 years of evidence. Every racist comment recorded. Every cruel act documented. The money you've been stealing from the family foundation. The bribes you've paid. The tax fraud. All of it. You wouldn't dare! I've already filed the reports, he interrupted, his words like cold steel. The FBI has copies of everything. My wife, yes, my wife, doesn't know this. But I've been building this case since the day you tried to buy her off. You want to know the truth about those divorce papers you're so happy about? They're fake. I had them created to see exactly how far you would go. The ex-girlfriend you brought back? She's a private investigator I hired. Those text messages you fabricated? We have the original records proving you tampered with them. My legs gave out beneath me. I sank hard onto the floor, my entire body shaking, the pieces of a meticulously crafted puzzle falling into place. The house is in her name, he continued, his voice unwavering. Has been for 6 months now. The company shares have been transferred to a trust in her name. The foundation. She's the sole director now, not you. Every single time you humiliated her, I moved another asset out of your reach. Every cruel word cost you millions of dollars. And that prenup you love mocking? It doesn't protect me. It protects her from all of you. You can't do this! His mother shrieked, her voice shrill with unraveling panic. I'm done being your son, he declared, his voice a final, resolute pronouncement. I'm done watching you torture the woman I love. Security is outside right now. You have 10 minutes to leave this house. And if you ever come near my wife again, I will release everything. Not just to the authorities, but to the media. Every single thing you've done, every lie, every crime. Slowly, I pushed myself to my feet. My hands, miraculously, had stopped shaking. I opened the bedroom door and walked down those stairs, not in despair, but with a newfound purpose. My head held high, my grandmother's ring catching the light, I entered the study. The room fell utterly silent as their eyes landed on me. Hello, family, I said, my voice steady as stone, echoing the quiet strength I had always carried, often unseen. I believe you have something of mine you need to return, my dignity. But since you've spent 3 years trying to steal that, I'll just take everything else instead. Mrs. Wellington's face drained of color, her perfect, icy composure finally shattering. Isabel dissolved into sobs, black mascara streaming down her cheeks, a pathetic tableau of her own making. The brother, ever pragmatic, was already frantically calling his lawyers. My husband looked at me, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I truly saw him, truly understood. The exhaustion etched onto his features wasn't from work. It was the burden of a secret war. The distance I had felt wasn't rejection. It was the silent focus of a man orchestrating a strategic demolition. He had been fighting a war I didn't even know was happening, protecting me the only way he knew how, by allowing them to believe they were winning, while he meticulously dismantled their empire piece by piece. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking, tears welling in his eyes. "I should have told you. You should have trusted me to fight beside you," I interrupted, my voice softer now but firm. "But we'll deal with that later, after they leave." And leave they did. Security officers entered, their presence a silent, undeniable authority. The Wellington family was escorted out, his mother screaming about lawsuits and social ruin, his sister sobbing hysterically about their destroyed reputation. Within an hour, they were gone from our house. Within a week, the news broke publicly, a scandal that reverberated through the highest echelons of society. Within a month, his mother was officially indicted. The empire they had built upon cruelty, a carefully constructed facade of respectability, came crashing down around them, revealing the rot beneath. We sat in our suddenly quiet house that night, truly talking for the first time in what felt like years, not just existing in the same space, but connecting, raw and vulnerable. He laid bare everything he had been hiding. The 3 years of secret recordings, the meticulously gathered documents, the assets he had quietly protected and transferred, the comprehensive case he had built against his own family. He had been working 18-hour days, not to avoid me as I had tragically assumed, but to protect me, to protect us. Every moment I had felt him pulling away, he was actually diving deeper into the labyrinthine fight. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, the question heavy with a lifetime of pain and longing. "Why did you let me think you didn't care?" He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "Because you would have stayed and fought them directly, and they would have destroyed you. They've had decades of practice being cruel. They know every dirty trick. You have too much good in you to fight the way they fight. You would have tried to win them over with kindness, and they would have used that kindness to tear you apart even worse. So you fought alone," I concluded, the weight of his solitary burden settling upon me. "No," he said, taking my hand, his grip firm and anchoring. "I fought for us, the same way you fought for us. Every single time you got up and faced them again. Every time you didn't let them see you cry. Every time you chose to stay when anyone else would have run, you were fighting too. I just fought differently." "You should have trusted me," I repeated, though my voice was softer now, tinged with a nascent understanding. "You're right," he admitted, his gaze meeting mine, unflinching. "I should have. I thought I was protecting you, but I was also protecting myself from watching you get hurt worse than you already were. That was selfish. I see that now." We didn't magically mend everything that night. Real life rarely offers such convenient resolutions. Trust, once shattered, doesn't seamlessly repair itself with a single conversation. But we began. We truly began. Over the ensuing months, we learned how to be married all over again. Not the marriage we'd had before. That version was broken beyond repair. Instead, we forged something new, something stronger, something built on a foundation of hard-won honesty. The Wellington family lost everything they had valued. Their prestigious company underwent a massive restructuring, their carefully cultivated reputation in society irrevocably destroyed. The social standing they had spent generations building and had sacrificed their very souls to maintain evaporated like mist. Decades-long friendships dissolved as news of their fraud and calculated cruelty spread. Charities swiftly removed their names from buildings. Exclusive country clubs revoked their memberships. And I gained something far more precious than mere revenge. I reclaimed the truth. I found my dignity. I discovered a husband who, I now knew, would burn down his entire world to protect me. Mrs. Wellington attempted to reach out once, about 6 months after the cataclysm. She appeared at our door, tears in her eyes, apologies on her lips, a performance honed by years of social maneuvering. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I forgive you. I do. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. You taught me that lesson yourself when you spent 3 years locking me out of your family. Now, I'm merely returning what you taught me." She left and never returned. We eventually moved away, selling that grand, cold museum of a house. We found something smaller, warmer, a place where ghosts didn't linger in the hallways. A home where we could build our own memories, unburdened by the crushing shadow of his family's toxic history. My family now visits whenever they wish, their laughter filling our new home. My sister graduated from college, completely debt-free, embarking on a promising career. My mother retired early, spending her days tending to her vibrant garden, no longer cleaning the homes of indifferent strangers. And my husband, he truly smiles now. A deep, genuine smile, like a man finally unshackled from chains he'd worn his entire life. We learned profound things about each other during those months of rebuilding. He learned that I possessed a strength he had underestimated, that I could have fought alongside him if he had only allowed me. He learned that true protection doesn't mean fighting someone's battles for them. It means fighting together. I learned that love doesn't always present itself in predictable ways, that the person who seems most distant might, in fact, be the closest, waging a quiet, desperate war on your behalf. That strength isn't always loud and obvious. Sometimes it's quiet and strategic, a slow burn of resolve. We learned together that marriage isn't about striving for perfection. It's about embracing honesty, about choosing to trust each other even when it's excruciatingly difficult, about fighting for one another, not just against the world, but sometimes against our own instincts to shoulder burdens alone. The most vital lesson, however, was this. Sometimes the conversation you're not supposed to hear is the one that saves you. If I had simply walked out that day, suitcase in hand, without pausing to listen, I would have spent the rest of my life believing I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't worth fighting for, that love had ultimately failed me. Instead, I learned that sometimes love wages its battles in silence, that strength isn't always visible, that the person you perceive as abandoning you might, in fact, be burning down their entire world to keep you safe. His family believed they were breaking me. They were, in truth, forging me into steel. They thought they were safeguarding their precious legacy. They, ironically, destroyed it themselves. And my husband, he thought he was protecting me by fighting alone, but he learned that real marriage demands fighting together, especially when the enemy is your own blood. Looking back, I grasp truths that eluded me in the midst of the struggle. I understand that sometimes you must allow people the illusion of victory while you're engaged in an entirely different game. They were playing checkers, making obvious, short-sighted moves, celebrating trivial wins. He was playing chess, thinking 10 moves ahead, sacrificing pieces strategically to win the entire game. I understand that the most potent response to cruelty isn't always to retreat. Sometimes it's to stay just long enough to witness people realize they've defeated themselves, that their own malevolent actions orchestrated their downfall. And I understand now that sometimes, just sometimes, the love you fear is dying is actually just learning how to fight, learning how to protect itself, learning how to survive in a world intent on its demise. But I also learned what I wish he had known sooner. You don't have to fight alone. Marriage isn't one person shielding the other while they remain in the dark. It's two people standing back to back, seeing the threats the other cannot, protecting each other's blind spots. It is trust, real trust, the kind that declares, "I know this will be hard, but I believe you can handle it." I wish I'd known earlier that his distance wasn't rejection, but I also wish he'd trusted me enough to tell me the truth. We both made mistakes. We both learned from them. The hardest lesson, perhaps, was learning to forgive. Not his family, for their venom was a choice, but him. Forgiving him for making decisions about my life without including me, for deciding what I could and couldn't handle, for protecting me in a way that, at times, felt like he was treating me as fragile instead of strong. He, too, had to forgive me. For not seeing how fiercely he was fighting, for thinking the worst of him when I found those fake divorce papers, for almost walking away without affording him the chance to explain. Forgiveness in marriage isn't a singular event. It's a daily practice. It's choosing each other over and over again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Today, we nurture a small garden behind our house. We planted it together, both of us on our knees in the rich earth, building something beautiful with our own hands. There's a profound healing in watching life grow, in nurturing beauty instead of battling destruction. Sometimes, in the quiet evenings, we sit there, talking about everything, the good days and the bad, the moments we are proud of, and the ones we wish we could rewrite. We hide nothing from each other anymore. My sister occasionally asks if I regret marrying into that family, if I regret those 3 years of hell. Honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, but that crucible taught me things about myself I might never have learned otherwise. It taught me that I am stronger than I ever knew, that I can stand in the fire and not burn, that I can be broken and still, piece by painful piece, put myself back together. It taught me what real love looks like, not the fairy tale version, but the complicated, messy, fight-for-each-other version, the version that doesn't give up, even when walking away would be infinitely easier. If I could travel back in time to that day, to the version of myself packing my suitcase, ready to vanish forever, I'm not sure what I would say. Perhaps I'd simply tell her to listen at that door. Or maybe I'd whisper that it's okay to leave when you're hurting, but it's also okay to stay and fight for what you love. Perhaps I'd tell her that the truth is always worth waiting for, even when the lies feel overwhelmingly suffocating. Or maybe I'd simply hold that younger version of myself and say, "You're going to be okay. It doesn't feel like it right now, but you're going to be more than okay. You're going to be free." Because that, ultimately, is what we both are now. Free. Free from his family's cruelty. Free from the insidious weight of secrets and lies. Free from the burden of fighting invisible battles. Free to love each other the way we should have from the beginning, openly, honestly, without walls or shadows between us. So, why do I share this story with you? Because I want you to know that when someone shows you who they are, yes, believe them, but also remember that sometimes people are showing you who they have to be to protect what they love. And the difference between those two things, that's where real love lives. I want you to know that not all battles are loud. Not all love is obvious. Sometimes the person who seems the most distant is, in fact, the closest. Sometimes the silence is filled with a fighting you cannot see. I want you to know that if you're in a situation where you feel small, where people make you question your worth, where you wonder if you truly belong, you are not alone, and you are not crazy. Trust what you feel. Document what you see. Protect yourself, but also leave room for the profound possibility that there's more to the story than you know. Do not make permanent decisions based on incomplete information if you can help it. Most importantly, I want you to know that you are worthy. You are enough. Anyone who makes you question that doesn't deserve a place in your life, and anyone who truly loves you will fight for you. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not the way you expect, but they will fight. The question isn't whether someone will fight for you. The question is whether they'll let you fight beside them when the time comes. My husband learned to let me stand beside him. I learned to trust that his fight was also my fight, even when I couldn't see it. And together we learned that the strongest love isn't the one that never breaks. It's the one that breaks and then chooses to heal, chooses to rebuild, chooses to keep going. That's our story. Messy, painful, complicated, and gloriously real. And we wouldn't change a single thing. So.